Assalamu alaikum. This is Camille Matta. I am actually very honored to be speaking to you today about our experience with assistive technology and the use of assistive technology in our daily lives, be it at school or in any social environment. Today, the title is called Power Assistive Technology, and you would be noticing that I will be showing as much as possible the classification of the technology and how it applies in our daily lives. I will start by mentioning that technology as a normal technology that we find everywhere in our life, like since they created the transistors and they created the computers, and anything that is around us is simply modified to be used with children with disability or people of determination. So it's not like it's been made specifically for someone with disability. This technology is available around us, and someone takes it and customize it or modify it. This is why we call it's the technology that assists us in everything that we do in our daily lives. I always like to stress in my presentations that people with determination or special needs people usually have the legal rights under the laws of the United Nations to communicate, access, and learn. And this is something that has been signed and ratified by the majority of the United Nations members, which means automatically all the countries that are attending our Congress today know very well that these laws have been ratified, and automatically we have given and allowed people with determination to have access to technology that allows them to communicate, or they have access to communicate, and they have also the right to access these communication tools and data, and they also have the rights to learn. Now, when I say they have the legal rights, if you look around you now and then say, how do we communicate? We don't communicate anymore. In majority of the time, we don't communicate in paper. We don't disperse with data using paper. What we do now is we do everything over digital environment. We do everything over the internet. And that automatically means that I am giving the legal rights to everyone with disability to have access to the internet. This is when things become more exciting and accessible for people, for the parents and for the support staff around people with disability. Because almost everything that we have now, it's either on a mobile device or on your TV, digital TV, smart TV, or in your smart car, or in any device and tablet that is around us. And this is good news, by the way, although people think like, oh, it's becoming harder now because how can my child access all this technology and data? It's actually, as you will see, more accessible now because it's more digital. Assistive technology is always have previously and over the last few years have been divided into three different classifications: low tech, or what we also call no tech. It's anything that is related to tools that assist us in organizing the lives of people with disabilities or people of determination in their daily life, or it could be in school, it could be in the bus, it could be on a mall, it could be at home. So anything from adaptive pens, adaptive pen holders, schedules, anything that could be from from boards, from special desks, from special seating arrangement. All these could be either with low tech or no tech. And then we have the mid-tech devices. And mid-tech devices, as you will notice, they are not complicated devices. They are simple technology that can magnify a content of a screen or a paper for me. It can speak on my behalf. It can read on my behalf. It can give me access to control something on my behalf that does not require for me to use a high-end technology. The high-end technology is where things become a little bit more sophisticated when it comes to technology. Usually, it is also associated with higher costs. What I would like to mention is that the technology cost is becoming cheaper as we go. Something that used to cost $2,000 to $3,000 not long ago now costs only $300-400. For example, take for example the iPad, where an iPad that used to cost $1,000, you can now get it at $300, and so on. So the indication that high tech is related to high price is changing now, and the complicated technology is becoming more available at lower prices for children with disability. What I would like to usually classify the technology, the assistive technology, is I like to classify the role of it. So it doesn't need to be only classified as low, mid, or high tech. I can look at it and say, what does it do for me? This technology is actually used for making my communication easier. How can I use a laptop, or how can I use a tablet if I don't have a way how can I do it if I don't have access to it? What happens if I cannot touch it properly? If I cannot touch a keyboard or a mouse, how can I have computer and tablet access? What happens if I go to school and the content of my school curriculum is not accessible to me? So we always look at these modifications that can happen to my curriculum that will allow me to make this kind of, use this kind of tool to be able to communicate. How can I control my environment? How can I have my sensory deprived environment or overwhelming sensory environment serving me as a user? Special needs, when it comes to people with Down syndrome, usually are easier to identify than multi-disabilities. For example, what I've done here in my slide is I came and said, oh, there's the physical special need, the physical disability, which usually is defined by poor muscle tone, hearing loss, which is very easy to identify, a poor vision, the problem with the hips, which means I have a problem with seating, problem with walking, and speech impairment, which is the problem with my muscle articulation in my neck that does not allow me to properly pronounce words or vocalize them. And we also have the developmental, which is the cognitive disability. And for here, this is where things can become a little bit harder to diagnose, not to diagnose as a disability, but to diagnose the solution for it. And this is why you'll find a lot of people that have question marks on, what do I do? My child is slow. He's a slow learner. My child has, he's on the spectrum. So not only he has a Down syndrome, he's also on the spectrum. So how do I deal with that? And that also could easily be the cause of delayed speech and language impairment. So we will look at some of the examples on how assistive technology can serve someone with these disabilities or these cognitive issues or physical issues on continuing their lives in a normal social behavior or social environment. Assistive technology, I'm going to put some examples now. And if you remember, we've divided them between physical and cognitive. So on the physical part, you will always see that it's available for me to use special keyboards with key guards. As we have mentioned that sometimes the hand articulation does not allow children with Down syndrome or people with Down syndrome to use the keyboard properly. This is why when we use key guards, as you see in the picture, it will allow them to place their full hand on the keyboard and then only drop the finger that they have proper articulation of the muscle. They can drop it inside the key that is available for them to use. We have a lot of adaptive tools that are specifically made to allow for easy access, easy grip of a pen, easy grip of a tool, such as scissor or stapler or a keyboard or a calculator. We also have slanted desks that also allow for this kind of articulation issues when we're writing. And these desks are typically in plastic or the desk itself can be slanted in different position to allow for this kind of positioning of the hand to be able to write. We have applications that support speech development by allowing us to hear. So if we have a hearing impairment, we'll be able to hear this kind of text that is available for us as data. And then also we have many applications that allow us to practice speech skills by modeling for us sounds and phonetics, and we'll be able to discriminate between them. And then this will allow us to use, it could be an app, it could be an application, or it could be a software that is available on the screen for us to use. And not to forget that for people that have issues with hearing, and then they need to be discriminating sounds and audio, usually there are some individual FM devices or FM devices that are available within the classrooms that will allow for a child or a student to discriminate sounds and remove the auditory noise and concentrate using a headset or using an adaptive ear set, or even use an adaptation to a cochlear implant. So if they have a cochlear implant, they'll be able to use these devices to adapt to them. On the cognitive and developmental technology examples that we have a lot of these tools that are available in mainstream schools that can be used with mainstream children or children with Down syndrome. And all they do is they allow the child to have a bank of spell checking data that is available that usually is related to the topic that they're studying. For example, if I'm studying about, let's say today is Flag Day. So if I'm studying about the flag of my country, then the computer can give me a small collection of words that I can use to check against for me to be able to spell or form my sentence using some of my words that are related to the topic that I'm studying or that I'm forming a sentence with. Same thing for word predictions and grammar checker. Now, there may be some argument that this will make children more reliable on computer or more reliable on those applications and spell checkers and writing. Honestly, what we're looking at now at this level here is we're looking, how can we keep the child with disability, certainly the children with Down syndrome, how can we keep them on the same level or on par with children that have severe disability, that do not have disability, and that they are in mainstream schooling. So what we do is we try to give them this advantage of using this tool, although we know that it could be considered as a, what one child one time told me that, oh, they're cheating because they have the words in front of them. Well, what I mentioned is like they were not cheating. We're actually giving them tools to give them, to help them find the words and help them find what they're thinking about, but they cannot properly pronounce it or properly form it. Reading scanners or pen scanners usually are also available to be able to transfer text into optical character recognition, and the text in return becomes a text-to-speech. So there are a lot of these tools that allow for the text to be recognized, and a lot of the application that allow for text to be read. Again, we're saying this because a lot of children have the ability to read, they have the ability to write, but they usually sometimes do it in slow motion. So what we need to do is we need to allow them to be able to have this access to a faster way of inputting the data and outputting the data. Same thing with schedules and agendas. These are made specifically to allow them to organize. And I know one child that is using mind mapping, and mind mapping tools are very easy to use in a way that allows them to cognitively organize their thoughts and their daily activities and their agendas to be able to express themselves properly. Now, some questions are usually asked, like how much proliferation, how much is assistive technology available among us? Sorry, the word is not pronounced properly. How much assistive technology exists now with people that have Down syndrome? And then if I look at a very quick statistics, and this one was done in 2017, and the title is The Impact of Technology on Individuals with Down Syndrome and the Families. You'll be surprised to learn that 76% of parents that were interviewed or that it came into this study, they did not know that there are some apps that can help people with Down syndrome on performing their daily chores or being included in school, in the mainstream school. 88% reported that they did not use those AAC devices or the AAC tools. 12% only use them. Now, is that because they didn't know or because it's hard? This is where we do always ask, and we look around when we're doing an assessment to a social environment, or when we do an assessment for a school or a center or a country on its own level. We look at what is available. So for example, this study was done in 2017 in Bahrain, and this published study found out that the number of courses and where assistive technology was adopted was very low. The number of workshops and training on assistive technology were also very low, and assistive technology that was adopted within these technologies, within courses, were mainly on vision and hearing, and the cognitive courses that were available in Bahrain were mainly the majority of them, and most of the skills that were taught were on how to use the motor skills for touching the screen on a tablet. Does this mean that we do not have the abilities or we do not have the technology? No, actually the technology is available. It's just the way we apply it, because we do not have, in most of the countries that I'm working with here in the Middle East, we do not have proper implementation of the technology, and it could be for many reasons. One of them is what we call institutional funding for the assistive technology, or where we say that there is no proper government level planning for the implementation of assistive technology in daily lives or in schools or in centers. And that's not the fault of the therapist, but that's because we are still in the infancy in our region here in implementing technology or technological tools in our daily lives. And I personally see the changes happening where the technology becomes one of the main tools in serving the principles of our Congress on diversity, inclusion, and the improvement of quality of life. I would love to know if there are any questions that are available. I look forward to hearing the questions and answering them if there are any. And I look forward to meeting you all, hopefully, at the next Congress in person.